All right. First rule of this channel, we not talk about this channel. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So this is going to be after waivers for week 11 of fantasy football. This is going to be the proactive waiver wire show where we're picking guys up a week early and then we're rolling them the week that they spike. So anyway, let's move on to the good stuff. Travion Henderson this week, if you're living under a rock, 84% snaps, 14 for 147, 2 touchdowns, another 1 for 3. What I have written down is wide receiver threes grow on trees. Guys that can spike at running back when the stars align, um, those guys don't grow on trees. Now, what is a win worth to you? Well, some of these guys, you may need to be rolling them on the bottom of your bench all season long to get that one spike week when the stars align. And you could go like, yeah, this is a pretty good week to be rolling them out there. It's like Tampa Bay versus the Bucks. It did say like there's going to be a lot of opportunities for scoring. Kind of disappointed, and not unless you rolled out your Tre'Davion Henderson shares. Now, in my main money league where we have Bijan, and Ramondre was ruled out, I looked at my co-manager and I was like, hey, you want to get cute? And he said no. And he regretted that. Now, I also tried to explain to him about like Algier is vulturing touchdowns all season long, and we shouldn't have paid what we paid for him in our auction draft. But in this case, like, sometimes getting cute is going to burn you, and sometimes like you're just waiting for that one week to roll your guy out there, and then you get like your massive spike week. So that's just how it goes sometimes, and you have to have the guts to be benching those guys that like you normally wouldn't have been benching those guys that you paid for because you got to get those weeks. Because my high school league, I did get the spike week. In my main money league, it was on my bench. So that's how it goes sometimes if you're going to be going after those things. Now, week 12 buys, you're looking at the Broncos, the Dolphins, the Chargers, and the Redskins. And hopefully you're not rolling out anybody that's for the Redskins at this point. Lots of Chargers, a couple Dolphins, and a few Broncos at this point. Like week 12 buys or week 12 defenses. Packers are going to be playing the Vikings and JJ McCarthy at this point. Like that would be probably the plus matchup if you don't have the Seahawks that are going to be rolling up the Titans in again. Uh, if the Seahawks are available, like I don't know how competitive your league is. I don't know who's available at this point. Like I'd just be buying the Seahawks regardless at this point. Ravens are going to play the Jets. Who knows who the quarterback is going to be for the Jets? So like the Ravens, not necessarily a matchup that I would really like because of the Ravens defense, but I would be rolling a lot of people I can against the Jets at this point. And then the Raiders do play the Browns. You can kind of go both ways on that one. I probably would be rolling the Raiders against the Browns if I want to get a little bit cute. Falcons are going to play the Saints. Tyler Show did look better, but the Falcons like did not. So at this point, like I can be looking at rolling the Falcons against the Saints. Like if I did not get the Pack or the Seahawks or even the Ravens or something like that. If I get those guys, and then Niners are going to be playing the Panthers, and Panthers did not look good against the Saints this week. 49ers have lost a lot of guys on defense, but like if you can predict that ahead of time, and they are available. The Niners also do have a lot of good matchups. I think I did talk about this with my well, I just go to this one so we can talk about the 49ers first. I did talk about this with my co-manager. The 49ers do have this really nice stretch of games. Arizona, the Cardinals, the Browns, bye week, and then Tennessee before the Colts in the semis. So like there is a stretch of games, even though the 49ers have lost a lot of guys, they do have a lot of really good matchups on that one. I believe I also talked to him about the Falcons defense also having a good stretch of matchups. Carolina, the Saints, the Jets before they get Tampa Bay. So you're going to get a couple good weeks or a few good weeks out of the Falcons and the 49ers going on down the line. Now, we'll just get into it when it comes to the news. So say it with me with Brock Purdy. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. There's no real news on whether or not he's going to play. And again, with the 49ers, I would not be surprised. Like week 11, 12, 13, and then week 15 are all projected to be victories for them. I don't know if they need to be rolling out Brock Purdy. They could be like, was it 10-4 going into that week 16 matchup against the Colts if they don't want to be rolling Brock Purdy and they can actually win the games that they're supposed to be winning at this point. Running back room, there is a little bit to talk about this one. So 78% snaps. So they were in a game. They fell behind against the Rams. They clawed back in and made it close. And then the Rams pulled away late in this one. So take some of this with a grain of salt. I did look this up, but this is 2 weeks in a row. That's the wrong guy. I don't want the Falcons pulled up. 2 weeks in a row, this has happened where you have a B-Rob vulture of a touchdown. So in this game, 28% snaps went to B-Rob. 3 red zone carries went to him. He tugged on one of them. 2 red zone carries went to CMC. You also had CMC having 3 red zone targets. 1 red zone opportunity went to B-Rob at this point. Juice also had a red zone target. So like you do that with what you will, whatever, when it comes to CMC and B-Rob for the rest of the season with that overall usage, especially with that stretch of games that's going to be coming up for the 49ers. Now, Wide receiver room, say it with me. Ricky Pearsall, maybe he will, maybe he won't. Who knows at this point? So hopefully you don't need him. Like my co-manager in my high school league was like, I don't know if he's ever going to be available again, and I would tend to agree with that at this point. Juwan Jennings was at 92% snaps in this game, 9 for 6 for 71 and a touchdown. He did have a fumble lost, and then you're looking at Kendrick Bourne down at 68% snaps. Scrolling down, Demarcus Robinson was at 46% snaps in this one, and again, kind of remember that like this is playing from behind for a lot of the game. Kittle did have 4 red zone opportunity. Luke Farrell did vulture a tight end red zone tuck. All right, Bears. In this one, they came back on the Giants, and again, the Giants head coach got fired, partially because of how the game was managed in this one. So running back room, DeAndre Swift was at 62% snaps. 2 red zone opportunities went to him. Monongahela was at 38% snaps. 1 red zone opportunity went for him. DJ Moore got knocked out with a shoulder in this one. He was down 62% snaps. This is one of those offenses that we talked about this last week. Like a lot of mouths to feed. Sometimes you can predict it, sometimes you can't. Rome bounces back 10 for 6 for 86 and a touchdown. Luther Burden did get the bump because of the DJ Moore injury. It does look like right there. 49% snaps, and then Oldemine Zacchaeus was about the same at 57% snaps. When it comes to the tight ends, Cole Kmet was at 66% snaps, and Colston Loveland was at 62% snaps. 4 for 4, 55. What I will say on this one is I did see on the Twitters that Colston Loveland was more involved in the passing game, and that's not surprising. 4 for 4, 55 when it comes down to that. All right. Bengals are coming off their bye, and we'll get Joe Burrow out of the way real quick. So supposedly, or well, not supposedly, practice window was open. Supposedly, the day that they are expecting, or the week that they're expecting him back, is week 13. Baltimore, you see right there, week 14. Buffalo, that's your time frame on this one. So Joe Flacco, week 11, week 12 do look pretty good for the Bengals, and then week 13, week 14, 15 do look good even if it's Joe Burrow. Now, what I will say is about being aggressive. If Joe Burrow has been dropped in your league, chasing touchdowns is a good way to win your league. It's a good way to lose your league. Those are good matchups. Trying to get the quarterback that is going to throw bulk touchdowns is not the best way to kind of win your league. You do want to be chasing those rushing upside quarterbacks. But if he's available, like, yeah, I will be putting a bid on Joe Flacco or Joe Burrow in this case. Like, he has been dropped in my main money league, and I can see why. But I'm not going to be too heartbroken if I miss him. There's going to be a lot of other guys that I can be rolling out there on any given week. And I probably do need him, or I quarterback in both my leagues because of Jackson Dart, if you're wondering. All right. And then nothing else to talk about when it comes to the Bengals. In this case, Bills were kind of surprised, blown out by the Dolphins. So about all you got to know on how this script went is Ty Johnson was at 40% snaps in this game. And then I don't really care about the wide receivers. The other stuff to talk about in this one when it comes to, especially after waivers. So Dalton Kincaid was knocked out with a hamstring. And then you get your equal and opposite reaction when it comes to Dawson Knox. Tampa Bay, it looks like a really good week to get like scoring to be going on with these teams. So if Dalton Kincaid is knocked out, and then you can get like full bell cow Dawson Knox, like 80% snaps in this one, not going to be surprising that you could somewhat predict a spike week when it comes to the Bills in a plus matchup and all that good stuff with Dalton Kincaid being knocked out. That would probably be the main streamer that I'd be going after in this one. And then Jackson Haas was at 43% snaps. I don't think he's going to step up and become like the receiving tight end as the blocker in this one if Dalton Kincaid misses. All right, Broncos, and hopefully you're not under a rock at this point. So it does look like J.K. Dobbins is going to miss multiple weeks with a foot injury at this point. It just becomes an issue how many weeks he's going to miss. I would put my expectation on RJ Harvey being a little bit muted. So Tyler Beatty has been rolling about like 20% snaps as the passing down back all season long. Again, the two things that we want out of a running back are going to be red zone opportunities on a good offense and then design receiving work. I don't think he's going to get some of that 2-minute work because it's going to go to Beatty. He may get design passing work. It just becomes like, is he going to get the red zone opportunities, or are they going to go through him? I'm not going to be surprised if they bring in some type of grinder in that role for the time that J.K. Dobbins is out. I don't think he's going to necessarily take that. So like probably good to say that he's going to be an RB2. I don't think he's going to be like full RB1. It just becomes an issue. Is he going to be like a high end RB2 or a low end RB2 when it comes down to like usage overall on all that stuff? and did put a trade offer out on him already and was told like absolutely not. So there you go when it comes to like the possibility of having a league winner on your bench all season and you've been waiting for it at this point. Now, Cortland Sutton in this one, 87% snaps. The only thing before I get into Troy Franklin, if you drafted Cortland Sutton to be your wide receiver one, yeah, I'd be worried. I don't know how many leagues that you were drafting Cortland Sutton to be your wide receiver one. Otherwise, you're like, there's a couple weeks that I would be looking to matchup shop. Like maybe you're going to get Kansas City if they're worried about taking away Troy Franklin. You may get week 16 and then week 17 against Kansas City again. But you're probably rolling him as like a wide receiver two at worst. At best, you're rolling him like in that flex role. That's where he should be at, something along the line. All right. Troy Franklin in this game, and to say it with me, like never trust Thursday Night Football. 9 for 5 for 40 and a touchdown on his 2 red zone opportunities. Also had another 153 error. So like, yeah, that's the guy I would be rolling over Cortland Sutton at this point going on. And then Cortland Sutton like are going to get weeks where they're taking away Troy Franklin and Cortland Sutton's getting it home at that point. So maybe you could predict those matchups when it comes to Cortland Sutton. All right, Browns, close loss to the Jets is what I have written down in this one. Supposedly, like Dylan Gabriel will remain the starting quarterback, says right there in this one. Running back usage remain the same. I was looking at this with Jerry Jeudy. With Sauce Gardner getting traded from the Jets, you can start talking about like predicting this type of like deal. It's not necessarily a true spike week, but it's like, hey, it could have predicted that you could get a rollable week out of Jerry Jeudy. 12 for 6 for 78 and a touchdown. Cedric Tillman was back at 73% snaps in this one. And then Isaiah Bond was out with a foot. The other thing is the tight end usage was down. 68% snaps for Njoku. He tugged. And then Harold Fandon was at 66% snaps in this game, 7 targets. Both of the snap shares were down, which is a little interesting to me. All right. Buccaneers and the Patriots right here. Buccaneers were playing catch up most of this game going on. Running back room, Rachaad White was at 72% snaps, but 5 for 5 for, what was it? Go on right here. 5 for 5 for 16, and then Sean Tucker was at 32% snaps. More efficient on his 9 carries for 53 yards, and then 2 for 1 for -2 in the passing game. Now, bringing all this up with the expectation that you could get more usage out of Sean Tucker and potential like plus matchups coming down for the Bucs. Week 11 Buffalo, week 12 Rams. It could be a lot of scoring. Supposedly off the Twitter, Bucky Irving is nowhere close to coming back. That shoulder is so bad he can't take contact at this point. So like I'm not going to say done for the year, but like you're getting to the point like when can you count on him coming back on this case? All right. Wide receivers, Abuka operated as the clear number 1 in the offense, 123 air to Tez's 49 in this one. And then you're also looking at, where is he at? Tez Johnson was at 83% snaps, 5 for 4 for 42 and 2 touchdowns in this one. And 3 red zone opportunities to go along with that. So like he's going to be rollable as a wide receiver 3 for the time being, and then you can just matchup shop that overall. The number 2 in the offense is probably Cade Otton, but like the higher spike opportunity is going to be Tez Johnson as he continues to rack up those red zone opportunities. Chris Godwin, if you're wondering, like no timeline on it. Supposedly it's a fibula injury, it's a bone injury, and there's like no timeline on him coming back at this point. It may be a while on that one. And then Cade Otton to finish this off. Like we can talk about like the tight ends that are number 1 and number 2 in his offense. He's probably the number 2 right now, and there's a big but when it comes to that. 97% snaps, 12 for 9 for 82, 0 red zone, 48 air. So like not necessarily the guy that I would be chasing when it comes to spike. It's just like 40-degree day when it comes down to that. All right, Cardinals, they got their teeth kicked in by the Seahawks in this one. Running back room, let's start off with Zonovan Knight. He got knocked out with a knee. I wrote it down. An ankle. He did have 2 red zone carries, 1 red zone target. DeMercado was at 42% snaps. And again, remember, this is a blowout. 1 red zone carry, 2 red zone targets in this one. If Knight remains out, would not be surprised that DeMercado is going to be flirting in that RB2 range. And then Michael Carter was at 11% snaps overall in this game. No news on Trey Benson. I don't know how much I want to be tracing this offense. And then supposedly Tyler Murray, he goes on IR. Supposedly may have played his last snap when it comes to the Cardinals. From a fantasy football perspective this year, it's probably good for all your toys. down the line. I don't have anything to say about the wide receivers. I do have something to say about wide receivers. So, not fantasy related, super fantasy related, but where's he at? Zay Jones did tear his Achilles, out for the year. All right, and then Chargers in this case uh, controlled the game against the Steelers. Well, let's go to your running back, get this out of the way right now. So, still tracking that Omarion Hampton is going to be back after the bye, but I would also be tracking at this point. You're going to get a split backfield when it comes to these guys. Kamini Valdell, 93% snaps, 25 for 95, a touchdown, another 1 for 13. So I'm just going to say, like, I'm not going to be really surprised, at least for a period of time after the bye, as they probably ramp Hampton up. And then if they don't want to put some of those like wear and tear miles on him, running him into the back of an offensive line, that could go to Vidal also. So that's something to be paying attention to when it comes down to all that stuff. So, Jared Patterson eating into Vidalia didn't happen. So when you're wrong on that one. Wide receivers operated pretty much how we expected them to operate, especially in the blowout. And then tight ends, I probably would not be chasing any of the other Chargers tight ends. So Gadsden looked like he may have had like a more severe injury than it turned out to be. 52% snaps, 6 for 3 for 13 in this one. It is just a knee bruise after the MRI, but I would be expecting, if you're the Gadsden owner, and I am, that you are probably going to be planning for him to miss week 11 and week 12, because they do have the week 12 bye. They don't have to rush him back, and they could get the bye week on top of that, like if they're really worried about it at this point. So like probably would be expecting to roll a Dawson Knox in his place if I have Gadsden. All right, Chiefs. Main thing to talk about with the Chiefs coming out of their bye is the expectation that Isaiah Pacheco is going to miss another week at least with that knee. So you are probably tracking Kareem Hunt being in that RB2 range. Week 12 against the Broncos, probably not the best matchup. And then you also could be tracking that you're going to get a bump from Brashad Smith coming out of the bye at running back. Also, I don't have anything else to say about any of the rest of those guys. Colts did come back against the Falcons because the Falcons don't want to win football games. And all I'll say on this one is Alec Pierce is the guy who gets home, 95% snap, 7 for 4 for 84 and touchdown. Again, like there's a lot of mouths to feed in this offense. Some guys are not going to get home on certain weeks. You probably did not pay for any of these guys up to and including your Ty Warren shares. So like, even though Ty Warren is going to be a league winner and he did get home again this week, like there are going to be weeks where like some of these guys don't get home, and hopefully you're not rolling them in spots where you need them to put up weeks. You're just chasing a spike at this point on a week-to-week basis when it comes down to it. All right. Redskins are probably an offense that I want to be staying away from at this point. So rumors are, because the Redskins got blown out in this one against the Lions. Is that who they lost to? Yeah, blown out by the Lions at this point. Like that Jaden Daniels may not play again this year when it comes down to it. So moving on to the plus matchup for Marcus Mariota, if you're going to chase the guys with the ability to fall in the end zone against the Dolphins this year, that would be Marcus Mariota. Would downgrade all your toys. Running back room, I probably will be dropping Bill tonight when it comes down to the fantasy football. You're just not going to get designed receiving work out of them. You're also going to get limited red zone opportunities. The red zone opportunities that they get right now are going to C-Rod. If C-Rod does miss, you could probably be rolling out Bill one more week as a desperation running back too. But at this point, like you're not going to get any spike. So that's how I would be looking at these guys. They're probably better guys to be chasing that have your higher upside. I would rather burn a roster spot at this point, like holding on to a Henderson all season to get that one spike week when the opportunity arises, versus like expecting that you're going to be able to guess any week that Bill could rip off like a 60-yarder and potentially like get you home with a running back 40-degree day at this point. Like that's how I would view these guys, especially with the quarterback situation going on. And about the only other guy I would be chasing is Zach Ertz. 81% snaps, and here's your but on that one. Ben Sinnott comes in late, and he does get the vulture red zone touchdown. All right, Cowboys, they're got a bye. I don't got anything to say about the Cowboys if you're chasing them, so we can just move on to the Dolphins. Again, sneaky blowout of the Bills, 90 or 89% snaps for A-Chain, and then Ollie Gordon was down to 6% snaps, and I had to put out a little bit of effort because A-Chain was in the game late, basically running the score up. So this 19% snaps for Jalen Wright at this point. Like, it does look like he is the running back too when it comes to the Dolphins. Let's see, scrolling down. And then, again, they kind of blew out the Bills. So Nick Westbrook-Akane was down to 47% snaps. You also get Malik Washington down to 45% snaps, and we're expecting that maybe we would get like a little uptick with Malik Washington. Jalen Waddle was at 83% snaps in this game. So like that's what I would expect that Malik Washington would have been up to if that's how they were viewing him as the wide receiver 2 in the offense. All right, Eagles, ugly Monday night win against the Packers. Only thing to really talk about is the running back usage, not named Saquon Barkley. Will Shipley, 19% snaps in this game, and then Tank Bigsby was 13% snaps in this one. And then A.J. Dillon, surprise scratch when it comes down to all that stuff. So if you're trying to cuff shop for Barkley at this point, I don't know, between the two of you guys, like I guess you're looking at maybe Shipley again, the 2 for 2 for 17 back up there if you're going to be looking at that. It may turn it into like a split backfield if Barkley goes down at this point. All right. Nothing to say about the wide receivers or tight ends. Falcons, again, didn't want to win the football game against the Colts. So Bijan, and this is like I was talking to my co-manager about like why some of these guys I don't like coming into the season, and it's because like red zone opportunity, which means you need to get the goal line work to go along with design and receiving work. So Bijan is imperfect. He's going to get design receiving work. Not going to get goal line because of Algier. Algier vultures more work from him. So even though he had 86% snaps, only one red zone opportunity, 5 red zone opportunities went to Algier in this one. He tugs on 2 of those. At this point, I think he has got like six rushing touchdowns on the season that didn't go to your like first overall running back if you're chasing that one. So like they don't care about your fantasy lineup. Algier was also in the game in the fourth quarter or in the overtime period when they gave the ball back to the Colts so the Colts could finish the comeback and win the game. If you're in that, Darnell Mooney was at 90% snaps. So like the process was correct. 8 targets, but only got like 1 for 17 on this one. So this was one of those games that you could predict. Even though it was a variable game that there was going to be more scoring. Again, the process sometimes is correct, even though we don't always get the outcome that we want. All right. So the Giants, they fired their head coach. So you are tracking right now like Jackson Dart is in the concussion protocol on this one. So I would be expecting in a predictive bench against the Packers that you're going to get Russell Wilson to start things off with that. So like probably going to be having to look at bringing in another quarterback if you're the Jackson Dart owner, and I am. When it comes to the running back room, 67% snaps for Tyrone Tracy, 14 for 71, 2 targets, and here's your but. 33% snaps for Devin Singletary, 8 for 20, 3 for 3 for 53. So there's your receiving work going not to Tyrone Tracy. And then 3 red zone opportunities went to Singletary and 1 went to Tracy on top of that. So like, yeah, so Singletary is going to be your 40-degree day still, and Tracy's going to have your opportunity to spike off of all that stuff. The only other things, or there are some more stuff to talk about. So Darius Slayton may be out with a hamstring. I wouldn't be tracing your Jalen Hyatt at this point. Like he didn't even get any usage. I don't know who the wide receiver 2 at this point would be for the Giants if Slayton misses, and I probably don't care when it comes down to that with like the rest of the wide receiver room. And then tight ends, Theo Johnson, 97%, 8 for 7 for 75. This is his first real tight end 1 week. I know he probably had like other weeks that you say like, whoa, fantasy lineup scoring, yeah. 71 air yards. It's the big thing. So like being used vertically in the offense, and then Bellinger was at 73% snaps coming back from that neck also, and then Fedone didn't get anything. All right, Jags were another team that decided that they did not want to win the football game. Running back usage remained rather consistent when it comes to the Jaguars. 56% snaps for ETN. He had 6 red zone opportunities and 1 red zone target. He tugged on one of them. Tootin did have 2 red zone opportunities on his 27% snaps. And then LaQuint Allen was at a season high 32% snaps overall. Let's see. So first, and there's a lot of stuff to talk about with the wide receiver room for the Jaguars. So we got to go. Brian Thomas was out with an ankle. Don't know how long he's going to be out. No news on that one. Going over to the Raiders. Jacoby Myers in his first game there was at 44% snaps. Then we can go back over to the Jaguars. Finishes off. So Travis Hunter did have surgery on an LCL, so he's out for the year. Then we can bring up our boy Parker Washington was at 87% snaps, 7 for 3 for 33, and a touchdown. Also had a punt return touchdown. Yeah, at this point, like probably could say you got a wide receiver 2 for the rest of the season when it comes down to all that stuff. And then the other guy, De'Ami Brown, with all this stuff was at 37% snaps. If you're worried about that now, Brenton Strange, his practice window is open at tight end, but at this point, like with Parker Washington, like I don't need to know how the sausage is made if he's going to have opportunities to score like return touchdowns on top of whatever gravy I get in the passing game. That's just going to be good enough for me versus the price that you played for him, and that's going to be coming off the waiver wire if you haven't already picked him up and been rolling him. All right, Jets did beat the Browns. Really ugly game when it comes to the Jets and the quarterback. So no news on whether or not Justin Fields is going to remain the quarterback. 6 for 11, 54, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. 7 for 28. Now they're going to go up against the Pats at this point. Brees did get all the red zone. If you're worried about your Brees usage overall, wide receiver room, Garrett Wilson is probably going to be done for at least for the foreseeable future. You see right there, another knee sprain on the same knee that he hurt coming back early, 3 to 4 weeks, whatever that means. From a fantasy football perspective, Adonai Mitchell did not play coming over from the Colts. And I just have written down in my notes, like, sure, you can go get him, but I don't know why, because of the quarterback play at this point. When it comes down to all that stuff, yeah, you could get the number one in the offense. And then not Tyler Warren. We want to go to Mason at this point. Mason Taylor, 78% snaps. So, like, yeah, I'm just not really interested in any of the toys that's not named Brees, and Brees is going to remain somewhere in that, like, boom bust running back 2 range for the rest of the season. All right, Lions, I don't think I have anything written down. They blew out the Redskins, so there's nothing to talk about when it comes to them. Packers, really ugly game against the Eagles, and they lost. Is some stuff to talk about with them. So Josh Jacobs does look like he's better from that calf. He's up to 74% snaps in this game. Wide receiver room, trying to figure out how the wide receivers are going to shake out. So Matthew Golden did miss with that shoulder. No news on Jaden Reed at this point. Dobbs gets knocked out with the chest. Then you're looking at Wicks came in and did 65% snaps, did have 8 targets in this one. Heath was at 29% snaps. Savion Williams was down to 9. Watson was up to 82% snaps, so was slightly higher than I was expecting him to be at this point, but 4 for 2 for 45. So like he's going to be one of those guys that can have a spike on any given week. And then because of vacated opportunities, like it's going to be like any week that he could just be the guy in the offense at this point, because like, everybody's going down at this point. Tight ends, I will say, take this with a grain of salt. So 76% snaps when it comes to Luke Musgrave, 3 for 3 for 23. Very low air yards. I didn't even write them down overall. What I will say is, because of the overall how the game functioned, it was a really ugly game between the Packers and the Eagles. Not necessarily the greatest indicator of how he will be used down the line, but the Packers can drag every game down and decide that they want to play this like really ugly game. So like, you can get a spike week because out of a tight end because he's Luke Musgrave, or because you can get a spike week out of Luke Musgrave because he's a tight end. Christian Washington would probably be the guy, and then you're just monitoring all the other injuries to see if you're going to get into a point where you can't predict any of the usage overall when it comes to the Packers and the receivers at this point. All right, Panthers actually figured out a way to lose to the Saints, and I did go watch some tape, so we'll talk about the Saints here in a second. Running back usage overall, Rico Dowdle, 79% snaps to Chuba Hubbard's 21. All the red zone went to Rico Dowdle. That's all you got to know. So it just becomes an issue of like, are they going to suck so bad that Rico Dowdle can't even like give you your running back 1 usage or running back 1 score off of running back 1 usage? Let's see. Wide receivers, a little bit of interesting stuff. So Leggett was down to 70% snaps in this game, and then we get our boy Jalen Coker up to 75. But again, like if they're just bad, they're bad when it comes down to tracking all that stuff. And I believe Tet was at 91% snaps, 8 for 5 for 60. If you're tracking that stuff, and I don't care about the tight ends at this point when it comes to the Panthers and their all wonky tight end usage. All right, Patriots in this one, and they did win against the Buccaneers. They did control most of the game. Ignore the questionable tag when it comes to Henderson at this point. Like, so he was limited on Monday. They play on Thursday. Never trust Thursday night football. Henderson, he was full practice participation today on Tuesday, so he's in line to play. The bigger issue, if you're the Hendo owner, is going to be Ramondre. It did get another limited session in with that toe at this point. So he is tracking to be back at this point. I have a lot of stuff to say on Henderson. If you're wondering, on right here, 84% snaps for him. Actually got goal line usage, right? Second touchdown, he looked over to the sideline to see if he should score before they said, yeah, go ahead and score that long touchdown to end the game off. So, like, yeah, there you go. So, no idea how the usage is going to shake out if Ramondre comes back. I will say, from like, I did actually put out some effort and go watch the tape on this one. Like, that speed is on full display, and it really screws with the defense. And as a coach, I could talk about the fact that, like, your force player really has to come downhill hard to set that edge. And if he ain't there, like, Henderson's gonna just take everything in the house. I think he had the highest recorded speed this week. When it comes to, like, guys breaking away on touchdowns in the NFL. So, like, yeah, full display, you don't necessarily need him to be, like, really good at running in between the tackles. You just need to do it enough to keep the defense honest. And that's why Ramondre should be on the field from a very limited perspective. It's because, like, you can screw with that defense. Those safeties, most of the time they're going to be safeties. Sometimes they're going to be backers coming up on your force. And that means that your receivers are just going to be able to get downhill when you get safeties in the run fit on your force. That's why your Hendersons are going to be so valuable on the field. That's why, like, they should be rolling them in this role rest of the season, somewhere in that 70% snaps, because of the pressure they're going to put on the defense. So I could see this remain somewhat consistent even when Ramondre comes back, but I could also see that they go back to, like, some type of ridiculous split between the two guys for the rest of the year. Let's see. Diggs was at 59% snaps, which was in line with what we were expecting him to do. The bump did not go to Kyle Williams with Butte being out. He's only at 56% snaps. 2 for 1 for 71 or 72 and a touchdown. Did watch the tape on this one. It was play action. It was like an over route, and he just took it to the house after he got fouled. The guy that was the beneficiary right now is Matt Collins. He was up to 79% snaps, 10 for 6 for 106. I don't think you could predict this one if you're going to be chasing that one overall. And then the other thing that I would maybe talk about when it comes to the Patriots is Austin Hooper. Right now, like, concussion, so, like, you may get vacated targets going to, like, running backs first, and then the rest of the wide receivers. Could probably not going to help out Hunter Henry if he's not going to be, like, predictive in the first place. But Austin Hooper does, you see right there, like, 50 to 60% of the snaps he's on the field, he does get, like, a certain amount of opportunities that are going to probably go to. I would guess, if you really want to be a sicko about this, I would guess it's going to go to Matt Collins in the offense. Those 2 targets, 2, 3, 4 targets are going to go to him. All right. Raiders, let's see, in a really ugly Thursday night game against the Broncos. Never trust Thursday night football. First, I will go to Geno Smith. This would be a streamable week against Dallas if you're going to chase that thing and get cute, because it could happen. Looking at the rest of the wide receiver room, because let's see, Genty was at, like, 87% snaps. If you're wondering, I don't really care about that. So with Jacoby Myers being gone, Deontay Thornton did go 62% snaps. You're also looking at Trey Tucker doing 100% snaps. Beck only did 23% snaps. And then to go over to the Titans and look at Lockett, he was at 57% snaps, 6 for 5 for 44. And I bring this up. I don't know what type of league or shape that you're in, that you're going to be chasing the Raiders' vacated opportunities against the Cowboys. But we can talk about it being there, and we can talk about it being Tyler Lockett at this point. If you really want to be that guy that's going to be going out there and chasing that at this point, in that matchup against the Cowboys. Now, tight ends, it's going back to the Raiders. We also could talk about the fact that Michael Mayer did 62% snaps again, and then Brock Bowers, again, really ugly matchup, 83% snaps. If you're wondering about all that stuff, like predictive benches Thursday night, like all that stuff, you're going to be benching more elite players like your Bijans or your Bowers, and saying that we could have predicted that ahead of time. Got to get cute sometimes. Rams, in this one, again, they were up, and then it was a game, and then they pulled away in this one, so I take this with a grain of salt. Kyron Williams was at 58% snaps. 3 red zone opportunities went to him. He tugged on 2 of them. Blake Corum, 39% snaps in this game. He did have 2 red zone opportunities, so he's right there as a desperation RB2 because of the offense. He's probably going to have red zone opportunities on any given week. And he's also going to be, like, league-winning cuff if Kyron Williams goes down. You can be tracking a little bit of this Devontae Adams injury. It's oblique. Supposedly, he could have come back in the game if they weren't winning late or in the game overall. Really strange tight end usage for the Rams. And again, some of this may have been because of the blowout. So you're looking at Higbee doing 54% snaps. Ferguson was at 32% snaps, 4 for 1 for 32. Colby Parkinson, 57% snaps, 5 for 4 for 41 and a touchdown. And then Davis Allen was at 51% snaps and a touchdown. I primarily think this is because of the blowout overall. I don't know if you can track any of this stuff. Like you're definitely looking at Puka being the number one and Devontae Adams being like the number 1B. And then at that point, I don't think I really care about tight end. Probably a little bit more interesting in your dynasty leagues if you're still tracking on Ferguson. And I didn't go look up where the usage was overall in the game when it came to where the guys were getting their opportunities. And I don't think the other thing I have written down, I don't think if Devontae Adams' injury is actually worse than they're playing it out to be, I'm not entirely sure you're going to get the 1-to-1 replacement with Jordan Whittington in the offense for Puka that you would with Devontae Adams. So you may end up getting more of somebody else stepping in the offense. I didn't even see that Tutu Atwell was placed on injury reserve. So like you may end up getting that 1-to-1 replacement at this point with like Jordan Whittington. So there you go. This is me rambling into a mic. Don't have anything to say really about the Ravens. The only thing I would talk about is Rashad Bateman may or may not have an ankle injury going on. Did not necessarily get a bump from DeAndre Hopkins. If you're wondering about that stuff, Nuke did not get the bump. Saints did go watch tape on Tyler's show because I was really surprised. I was expecting that this was going to be an ugly game. 19 for 27, 282, 2 touchdowns in this one. Watch the tape. Did look impressive at certain points when it came to avoiding the rush and pushing the ball down the field. Did see that. So there's some good stuff there. Was a little surprised based off of some of the usage earlier that he was able to do that. Devin Neal was at 35% snaps in this game. Most of the usage overall went to Kamara. So that you are looking at Kamara potentially being able to be usable again if Show is somewhat consistent down the line. If you're wondering about those vacated Rashid Shaheed targets, let's see. Vele was at 87% snaps, so he was operating as the number 2 in the offense, and then Cooks was at 50, and then Mason Tipton was at 34. So that's what you're looking at overall. Tight ends, Jawan Johnson, 50% snaps, 4 for 4 for 92, and a touchdown. So the main thing out of this one is if Show is consistent, now we can start talking about rolling the Saints tight end. Jawan Johnson coming out of the bye for Week 12 Atlanta. All right. Seahawks, they blew out the Cardinals, so take all of this with a grain of salt. I'm not even going to talk about the wide receivers or the tight ends, really, because you can see, where's it? AJ Barner was at 37% snaps because they blew out the they blew out the Cardinals so bad in this one. Wide receivers with Cooper Kupp was at 53% snaps, and then Shaheed was only at, let me scroll down here, 34% snaps. Torrey Horton was out with an injury, so that gives an idea about what your snap shares are going to look like. Running back rooms, Kenneth Walker was at 44% snaps. Charbonnet was at 37% snaps, and then Holamani was at 18% snaps. He did score when the game was 14-0 on a 9-yard run. You're looking at red zone opportunities going like Kenneth Walker being 4, Sharps being 4. He did tug on one, and then Holamani had 3 in the game. He tugged on one, and again, that was in early. So if it gets even worse when it comes to trying to predict the Seahawks at this point, when it comes to running back usage and having any fantasy luck when it comes down to it. All right. Steelers were beat down by the Chargers, and outside of this Aaron Rodgers matchup against the Bengals, that you could be using him as a streamer, I don't really think I have anything to talk about when it comes to the Steelers and how bad the game was and overall usage when it comes to these guys. Texans, they came back late against the Jaguars, so take this with a little bit of a grain of salt. There was 26 points scored by the Texans in the fourth quarter. 6 came off of defensive score late to clinch it. And so Chubb was down to 13% snaps in this game. 80% snaps went to Woody Marks. He did get all the red zone, if you're wondering about all that stuff. And then, let's see. Davis Mills, I got to bring this one up real quick. Davis Mills was quarterback 1 on the week, this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. 27 for 45, 292, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 3 for 20, and a rushing touchdown on top of all that stuff. I think there were 2-point conversions also that probably went to that. Now, let's see. Wide receiver usage, Nico, 15 targets, 7 receptions, 136. A little bit odd usage. So Xavier Hutchinson was down at 53% snaps. Higgins was at 57% snaps. He did have 2 red zone opportunities on this one. He tugged on one of them, 7 for 5 for 42. So that they're going in the right direction when it comes to getting their younger players on the field. 33% snaps when it comes to Jalen Knoll, 4 for 4 for 35 overall in this game. I do have something when it comes to Dalton Schultz. 11 for 7 for 53 and a red zone opportunity touchdown. Cade Stover's window is open, or I didn't say open yet. Supposedly he's going to be back to practice this week when it comes to that foot injury. So if you're going to be chasing Dalton Schultz, it may be limited at this point when it comes to like being able to predict anything. So again, take that with a grain of salt. All right, Titans are coming off a bye. I don't think I have anything to say about them. And then finally, to finish all this stuff off, look real quick. The Vikings lost a game to the Ravens. They did trail for most of the second half when it comes out of it. I did go watch a little bit of tape on JJ McCarthy. Like, he looks like a rookie, even though like this is his second year in the league. Running back usage, Aaron Jones, 71% snaps. Remember, they were playing from behind for most of this game. Red zone opportunity split went 1 to him and 1 to Jordan Mason. So, like, if you're going to be chasing anybody, it's going to be Aaron Jones. I don't know how much you're going to be able to chase any of these guys. Justin Jefferson had 12 targets. Addison had 11 targets. And then our boy, Jalen Naylor, and I don't think you could have predicted this other than say, like, the Baltimore defenses look bad. 68% snaps, 6 for 5 for 124 and a touchdown in this game. So, like, yeah, sometimes you're going to have those, like, unpredictable spikes against some of those guys. That's how I would see it all break down. And probably at this point, like, you should have been moving on from TJ Hawkinson a long time ago, but he did have 91% snaps in this game. All right, that's about all I got for this week, and hopefully I'll be back next week.